video game speedrunning. There are countless streamers and YouTubers that have made a living off of speedrunning content, which is when you take a video game and you break it down from 1,000 different angles and you try to complete it as fast as humanly possible. These speedruns are super difficult for the average viewer to comprehend because it requires deep game knowledge, a little bit of computer science understanding, all these different factors that make the content very difficult to understand. And that brings us to today's guest. My guest today is the YouTuber TomatoAnus. Now, before you laugh at his name, TomatoAnus has garnered 500,000 followers on YouTube, and all of his content is him taking these long, complex speedruns and breaking it down to be a far more digestible experience for his audience. In my opinion, he produces some of the most entertaining and informative speedrunning content on the internet, breaking down long and complex speedruns into digestible content and lowering the barrier of entry for the average viewer. My name is Drew Waldron. This is Niche Talks. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And now, without further delay, my interview with TomatoAnus. Do you want to be called Mr. Anus or just Tomato for...
Whatever's natural for you. A lot of people call me Tommy. Some people go with the full tomato. Some people do TomatoAnus, Mr. Anus. I get it all.
We might as well jump into the interview right now. I feel like we started a minute or two ago, if I'm being honest. There are so many different reasons that people get into speedrunning. I feel like video game speedrunning is just one of those weird niche subjects on the internet where you could approach it from so many different angles. What do you think was it that first got you interested in speedrunning?
Oh, I mean, I think the most immediate thing is seeing a game you're intimately familiar with being just broken over someone's knee. Just tuning in and be like, how on earth are they doing any of this? You know, it's seeing something that you're so familiar with in an entirely different context, and that is just immediately gripping on your attention.
I feel like a lot of people don't get into speedrunning until they find that one game that they love so much. They know its mechanics in and out. What was the game that got you into speedrunning personally?
Yeah, so it's funny you word it exactly like that. So I originally became a speedrun viewer and a fan of speedrunning back in 2010, 11. I had a friend whose older brother had discovered GDQ, Games Done Quick for the uninitiated, very early in GDQ's career. It's not a person's, I don't know. It's existence, I should say.
Of course.
So was familiar with speedrunning then, but I think it was 2012 or 13. There was a Super Mario 64 speedrunner named Siglemic, and he's, you know, on the Mount Rushmore of famous speedrunners because he really just blew up in popularity, which is success as a platform, really rode his success as a speedrunner for a bit because he was going viral all summer. He did it like a month of August where every day was like 12 hours of SM64. So I was hooked as a viewer then. I just became enraptured with watching this dude speedrun Super Mario 64, which is a game so many people have so much time and experience with, you know, especially people who grew up in the 90s and even early 2000s, like really love that game. So as a viewer, I was really hooked then. I watched GDQ for a long time, but I never really thought of doing speedruns myself until 2017. It just kind of like what you said, there wasn't really a game that felt right. And it was early 2017. I was on winter break still while all of my friends went back to university, and I just watched GDQ the entire week. It was live. I had nothing to do. And specifically the finale run, it was a speed run of Undertale, just really spoke to me. It was a lot of what the speedrunner TGH talked about, like what speedrunning meant to him. And, you know, if you poll the speedrun community, what's the best thing about it? They're all going to say the community. So it was like feeling the, you know, how much it meant to him and the passion he had made me finally say, I've got to figure out a game for myself to speedrun. And I went through my entire Steam library on my computer, and any game that I liked playing, that looked interesting, I looked up the speedrun and just kept doing that until I found one that really spoke to me, kind of like what you said, which ended up being Fallout 4, which is a game that very familiar with. I had a lot of time in. Not my favorite in the series, but just something about it really spoke to me as a speedrun.
Mm. I always find it interesting. One of the most insightful explanations that I've ever gotten for someone saying why they're into speedrunning is that it's inherently competitive, but it's this competitive environment where everyone is technically helping each other to achieve the highest standard possible. I always compare it to I can't remember the name of the Olympian high jump guy. Shit, what was his name?
The Fosbury Flop guy?
Yeah. Is that what it is? Where like he was the first guy to like high jump backwards.
Yes. Yes,
Like
the
the explanation
Fosbury
guy was like,
Flop.
imagine that. Like think about how that revolutionized track and field. Now imagine if something like that happens weekly in sports, and
Hmm.
that's why speedrunning is so entertaining. Because as a community, yes, you are competing to be the fastest runner, to understand the game the best, but there is a level of community. You have to prove everything. You have to show your tech. That tech has to be improved by other people in the community. It's so interesting because there's really nothing else like it, you know?
Yeah, it really is like a group project, and anyone who starts learning a speed run, you are learning the speed run on the shoulders of everyone who contributed to the run before you. And it honestly feels a lot like a group project where anytime I'm setting a new record in, say, Fallout 4, since we were just talking about that, like, yeah, it's a personal achievement. I'm improving the time at the top of the leaderboard. I'm beating my own personal best, which, a lot of gratification in that. It's like, like learning a new instrument, and like really nailing something. It feels so good. But it's also, the speedrun record isn't just mine. It's everyone who helped contribute to the run, because the run would be nowhere near what it is without these dozens and dozens of people who helped contribute. And with some games, it's thousands of people who have contributed. Super Mario 64, there are thousands of people who have helped develop that run into what it is today.
And I feel like cataloging that history is where things get tricky, and that's where your channel comes in. I'm going to give you an introduction in this episode, but for those that are unfamiliar with your work, I'll edit that in earlier. It's all good. For those that are unfamiliar with your work, you do speedrun explanations where you take these famous runs, pause, explain in detail the mechanics of the game, what a speedrunner is thinking, what they're doing, what the community has built into that speedrunning history. And your channel description says that you think that speedrunning is very esoteric and you aim to bridge the gap. What do you think are the biggest barriers to entry for a casual viewer to get into speedrunning and understand the mechanics behind speedrunning, and how do you as a creator try to bridge those gaps?
It really depends on the game, but the big thing is community resources. Like we talked about, it's very much a community thing. It's very community driven. And sometimes these games will have all of this work done on them, and all of that work will be on display in a top speed run of the game. But maybe no one has sat down and spent 5 hours making a tutorial where they just press record and just walk through the game and explain everything. That might not exist, and it doesn't exist for a lot of games. So, like, the number one thing in bridging that gap is the work put in by these communities, the work put in by these individuals who just care so much about beating this game fast. And, that's something that a lot of people, when they first encounter the idea of a speed run, they immediately think like, oh, well, if someone else beats your time, like, are you going to look at what they do and copy them? It's like, well, yeah, that's what we all do, We all run the same routes. We all are working off of the same information. It's actually considered kind of like bad mannered to discover something, not tell anyone about it, and then set a new record with it. Because it's, the time that you were sitting on that strategy that you weren't telling anyone, you're kind of wasting everyone else's time because they're not working with the most up-to-date information. It's kind of, it's a bit rude.
Maybe I misunderstood you, but how, to my understanding, there's, a heavy burden of proof in the speedrunning community. Like, you can't just can't just say that you got a world record time. You have to prove it. How could someone like sit on information in a way that is in a way that hurts the community?
Oh, in a way that actively hurts, it's tough to say. It's more, the community is very much these personal bonds, these people who spend hours chatting on Discord, spitballing ideas, bouncing things off of each other, improving things that people find. And the actual act of hoarding these things is as simple as, you don't report something that you found. You find an interesting time save of 20 seconds, and then you do runs without streaming them, without telling people that you're implementing this new thing. And say you end up beating someone's time by 10 seconds, people are going to be like, "What the hell, man? Why didn't you why are you I just spent all weekend attempting to runs, and it could have been so much more successful. Why didn't you just say something?" So it's less about actively it's less of a tangible harm and more, like I said, it's the community. That's the big thing in speedrunning, and you're fracturing the bonds that is between all of us. It's betraying the trust that comes with being in a group of people like this working towards a goal. That's not to say hiding information isn't always inherently bad. Sometimes, people will discover things and then do like a reveal of them in a fun community way. There have been times that in the Fallout 4 community specifically, there were two runners who we all knew were working on something, and neither of them were saying what. And they're like, "We have a big reveal, don't worry, we got a big reveal." And then they edited a video together, and they did this big stream event, and it was a big community thing at the time. It was a total game changer in terms of the Fallout 4 speedrun. So it's not strictly bad, but it's a lot in how it's handled. It's a lot about the intrapersonal relationships of it all.
I can understand that. And back to your content specifically, you just talked about how much work goes into a video that reveals one single trick. The level of research that goes into your videos from an outsider's perspective is truly insane. And I don't know how you don't drive yourself to madness with all of the research you have to do, the collaboration you do, because very often you are collaborating with the people who set the runs or record the runs for you, give you explanations of the runs. For someone who's maybe not as computer savvy, you go into a lot of computer science sometimes with how games are coded and what specific things have to happen in what specific orders. It just seems so crazy. So that's a long-winded way of me asking you, how do you research one of your videos without going insane?
So thankfully, the runners who I work with, we're all very proud of the speed runs that we do. We all want to show them off to people. We all want people to see all the hard work that not just ourselves as the runner doing the run, but the whole community, all the work that they've poured into it. So runners are very excited to have an opportunity to show it all off. So I'll sit down in a call, like a Discord call with the speedrunner I'm working with, and we'll walk through the run, just step by step. They're explaining it to me. So the brunt of the research really is done by the speedrunner performing the run, and their thousands and thousands of hours of actual research, searching for things to like how to do this, and their countless hours of practice and attempts, because you learn so much by doing. And they are able to relay that information to me. I think of myself more as the funnel for taking all of this raw information that they give me and producing it into a streamlined video that moves along at a clip, and tries to, communication is difficult, right? It's really hard to explain some of these really complicated things that are going on in the speedrun in a succinct way where people will understand. So it's all about just distilling that information. Like, for example, right now I am working on a video where I had a nearly 4.5 hour call with the speedrunner, walking through about a 40 to 50 minute speedrun.
Jeez.
Just so much pausing and everything. So it's taking all of that, just trying to think of questions people might have. And that, I think that's the big thing. My big approach is I try and build the information so that you have all the baseline level stuff and it gets progressively more complicated. And then just think of questions that people are going to have. I think of what the YouTube comments might be asking and then try and nip that in the bud. It's a lot of going back to the runner with questions. Oftentimes I'll seek out additional resources on top of that. Back in the day before I did the calls with runners, I would work exclusively off of those community resources I talked about earlier, but it's often not the best. Like I said, not every game has had someone sit down and make a bunch of dedicated resources. A big upside to these calls that I do is sometimes the community and the runner in particular be like, hey, that was a really productive call. After the video's out, can I have that video file of our call? Because I record them so I can go back and review, and we can use it as a community resource then, because I don't think anyone has sat down and ever explained the game like this. So it's nice to have, not only the videos that I make provided to a general public, but then help contribute to that wealth of knowledge that, if someone in the future were to make a video like this, they would have that resource and that research readily available for them. So a lot of places, but mainly directly from the runner is where I get all the research from.
And I think that just highlights why I was so interested in interviewing in the first place. I think that you are in such a unique position where in order for a creator to create the content that you make, there are so many prerequisites that have to be hit that you hit. You have to have, a decent knowledge of video game mechanics, video game culture. You have to be a good communicator. You have to have the production skills, video editing skills. You have to be personable, because at the end of the day, you're a YouTuber. Your personality drives a lot of the channel. How do you think those factors came into place when you were first starting out, when you realized, like, oh, this is something I could do? Like, there's an audience for this. People enjoy watching this content. How do those factors all come together to create the TomatoAnus channel?
Well, I'll tell you what, the production value was not there at the beginning. That is
It never
definitely
is. It never is.
right. Like, as is with most, endeavors, like, it's a skill that you hone, and I had no idea how to edit videos or anything like that. It's been a very gradual evolution to where the videos are now. If you were to go back and watch a video of mine from 6 years ago, it's total bare bones voiceover gameplay, and now we've got crazy green screen work and a lot of fun goodies. But I think the biggest thing that I have always contributed to the driving force behind the channel was my formal education in engineering. I went to University of Minnesota, and I majored in chemical engineering, and that program specifically at that school is ranked fairly highly in the country solely because of one class where you have to write really, really, really intense reports. And through this year-long class, I feel as though I really honed a technical writing skill that I'm able to combine with, I also used to tutor. I used to tutor a lot of math and science. Able to combine this ability to write about technically complex subjects, but do it through a lens where, you can use analogy to make things click a little bit easier, or just take this really fancy word and just say it in a couple simple words, right? I think that's the big sauce behind the channel. In my opinion, that's where it mostly comes from, is this technical writing background. But that's not to say you need that type of background to do this. I'm a firm believer anyone could do this. Like, if I could do this, anyone could do this. I also think having a little bit of a twisted sense of humor helps at times, because it catches people off guard. But I think that's really it. It's just, for me, it's largely rooted in the writing.
I would agree with you, and it's so funny when someone explains their origin story and everything about them just clicks. Like the fact that you had to go through an intense chemical engineering program that required you to write these extremely long, detailed reports. Like, That could not translate better to the work that you do now. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you never would have guessed, right? You never would have guessed that. Ended up doing YouTube because of a degree in a totally unrelated field.
Never, but like it seems like you have such a great relationship with your fans. I think one of the most interesting things about your channel is that you oftentimes, correct me if I'm wrong, you have your Patreon fans vote on what runs you cover. How does that make you feel as a creator? How do you operate as a creator when you're kind of doing a democratically a democrat a system where your fans are voting for the content that you make rather than you deciding yourself?
Yeah, so every other video of mine is chosen by my patrons. That's kind of the system that I have in place right now. And it's interesting because there are a handful of runs I never would have thought to cover in a million years if it weren't for my patrons. And, the YouTube audience ended up loving them. One of my most popular videos I've ever made was on Subnautica. And it's the second most viewed video on my channel. And it's probably going to be the first most viewed in like a year or two, just by the way it's going. So it's really interesting. It's actually funny you ask. I was just having this exact conversation with a friend last week where he was asking me about what it's like. Like, does the motivation change at all? How do I get myself to make these videos if I'm not the one choosing topics? Because, in a creative space, motivation can be hard, especially when you're told to do something. But I don't know, just at the end of the day, the work's got to get done and it just flows out. I really enjoy the engagement with the patrons, and I love, it's a nice surprise. Like, oh wow, this is okay, cool. I get to kind of try and make a video in a way I've never made one before. They'll pick a game like Minecraft. That's a very open-ended game. I've never made a video on a game that open-ended. Or Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like, they want me to explain a speed run of this business simulator. Like, what does that even look like? So it's a really fun thing to look forward to, these games getting chosen. I never would have thought to, because it really allows me to try and develop like my writing skills and my presentation ability in different ways.
Absolutely, and I feel like one of the hardest parts of being, being a creative, being an artist in any sense, is once you develop a following or a fan base, wondering if what you put out there is going to be received well. And I would imagine that there's a level of security there, knowing that, when you're working on the Minecraft video and when you're working on the Subnautica explanation video, that you have an understanding in the back of your head, hey, there's an audience here for this. There's an audience that has been asking me for this. So you at least have some level of a guarantee that it's going to have decent reception.
Definitely, definitely. There is, of course, a little voice in the back of my head where, like, as a YouTuber, I guess I should say, like, I consider myself a speedrunner before I consider myself a YouTuber. I've always tried to approach this from a speedrunner first standpoint. That's why I'm so forward with how I present this as another person's run, and I pay them for their time, because a lot of speedrunners are taken advantage of in the content creation sphere. They have their runs stolen without permission and made into videos, or big big gaming syndications asking to use their runs in a video, and then they don't get any pay. And I've always wanted to approach this from a standpoint of, I want what's best for the runner and their community. I'm trying to shine a light rather than take the light that should be on them and put it on me. So I always approach it with that, but there is that YouTuber voice in the back of my head that's like, well, I still need my channel to do well, otherwise I won't be able to do this forever. Not that I expect to be able to do this forever. I have realistic expectations. But so despite the fact that it's chosen by my patrons, sometimes I'll be like sitting there, be like, geez, I know that like several hundred people voted for this, but I don't know, man. I don't know if the general masses are ready for me to make this type of video. I don't know if this will hit with my actual general audience. So there is a lot of, like, I don't know, fear, but just what's the word? Yeah, just apprehension, where I'm like, I've got to make it. I'm going to make it. This is what the people want. Are the people right? The people are always right. That's what I've learned. But it's, it's not all like full confidence in it all the time. There is self-doubt in there at times too.
I could see that, and it's nice to hear that you are, such an empathetic person when you are thinking about how you collaborate with these speedrunners. I feel like empathy is very often left out of internet content creation.
Just a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little
The
bit.
internet is not a very empathetic place, but that is a great segue into one of my next questions. I think one of the most unique things about your content, and something that really caught me off guard the first time I started watching you, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, is a large chunk of your videos, kind of towards the midpoint, will have a portion where you stop and you do, for lack of better words, a mental health check-in. You say some very warm and empathetic and kind words to your audience, wishing them well in a way that is so much more than just an empty gesture. I really don't have the words for it right now, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyone
Of
watching
course.
this video who's watched one of your videos knows what I'm talking about. Where did that start, and what was the reasoning behind putting that in your videos? Because it seems like such a curveball to put into a speedrunning video, but your audience loves it, and it's such a great addition.
Yeah, so I guess if anyone's listening that's hasn't seen one of my videos, I more or less, like you just talked about, just talk about like, hey, if things feel really stressful right now, like, and you just aren't feeling great, you have all these big emotions, as you might say, like, you're not defined by that, right? Emotions come and go, but you as a person, as an individual, are more than just how you're feeling in the moment or how you have been feeling for a long time even. And there was a time in my life where I could have had a lot of really dark days taken away by just hearing that from somewhere that, a bit more external. Sometimes that's what people need. And I know that's not what everyone needs, but there are many people out there who do need that. So I look to help hopefully provide that to the people that it will resonate with. And I know that it doesn't resonate with everyone. A lot of people don't like it. So I provide like a little timestamp in my videos now for how to skip it. But the way that it really started evolving in my videos into what it is now is it was frankly with COVID. It started with COVID was unfolding. Every day was new headlines. There was so much uncertainty. And I just included like just 2 or 3 lines in one of my videos just saying like, hey, I hope you're all doing well right now. I know things are real, like the future is very uncertain. Things are scary, but like, make sure you take care of yourself. There is a tomorrow, that's a big thing that I like to say. That's a personal mantra of mine. And it just, over the span of about 1.5 years or so, it kind of evolved into this thing that it is now that you described. Thankfully, most speedruns have about like a 30-minute span somewhere where there's not much going on to explain. So I almost always have the time in a speedrun just baked in where it's like, there's not much to talk about here. So I'm gonna, check in with my viewers, just, try and give them a helpful reality check, a reality check to take them away from the reality of their mind where, whatever pit some people might have dug themselves into. It's nice to, even if you are this disembodied voice that they will never meet, let them know that there is someone out there who does care. Because like I said, I've been there. I know what that feels like, and it really sucks. And it's really nice, again, even if you don't know them, to hear it talked about more.
I think it's really cool, man. I think it's really cool, mostly because it's so easy for creators today to just kind of do the empty gesture of mental health matters. They just kind of will say a mantra. There's not that much behind it. It's more aesthetic than anything. But the way you speak about it comes from such a interpersonal place where I just believe that you mean it. When other people don't feel like they mean it, I just believe you mean it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think one of my favorite things is I'll occasionally get comments of people saying like, this is the first time I was watching one of your videos, and when this part came on, I thought you were about to start going into a spiel about, hey, and please subscribe and all that stuff. It's like, no, I was very pleasantly surprised when that's not what it was about.
Well, it makes me feel better when I'm down in the dumps knowing that unfortunately, as a console player myself, I haven't made the
Oh,
jump to PC. I think that speedrunning is just such a far reach for me, but I'm an appreciator, TomatoAnus. I am an appreciator. As much as I can't get off the Xbox, it's maybe
hey,
one day.
there are speedruns on console. Don't sell yourself short. Anything's possible.
Well, it's funny because the game that got me into speedrunning, I was aware of speedrunning probably since I was like 11 or 12, but I really didn't get into speedrunning until Mario Odyssey in late 2017. That was really like the first game where I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but Nick Raveda.
Hmm.
I think if he's not the current top speedrunner for a good chunk of time, he was the top speedrunner of Mario Odyssey.
Yes,
And
for a
watching
very
his
good chunk of
streams,
time.
oh yeah, for watching his streams was amazing. I remember how psyched I was when he hit sub hour because he was the first one to hit sub 1 hour for Mario Odyssey. And yeah, that was the first game that got me into speedrunning. And I've been playing video games all my life, and I didn't get into speedrunning until I was 18 years old.
Yeah, it's hey, everyone has to have that one game that's the first time they see it, and it's cool hearing all of the different voices in the speedrun community talk about what brought them to it, because it'll be as simple as, oh, I went to Twitch and GDQ was the top stream because it was going on, to, yeah, my cousin, we were hanging out in his basement and we were trying to beat the heat and he started pulling up all these random YouTube videos. Everyone has a different story. It's really, really cool. Really,
It is
really
really,
cool.
really cool. It's a very, very cool environment, very, very cool community. I feel like one of the best ways to end this interview, TomatoAnus, is asking, as someone who is deeply entrenched in video game culture, what is an upcoming game that you are excited for?
Oh, geez. Okay. If you had asked me a week ago, I would have said Silk Song,
Oh,
because that was just on the horizon. Hades 2, also on the horizon. Very excited for that. I think my number one game, and people are always surprised when they find out this is my favorite game, Kingdom Hearts 4. I'm a
real?
huge Kingdom Hearts fan.
That is surprising.
I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. It has like zero overlap with any of the games I cover. It's just my favorite franchise because Kingdom Hearts 1 found me at just the right time as a child.
Mm.
And very foundational game. So anytime there's a new Kingdom Hearts, even if they're not the best game, even if they peaked at Kingdom Hearts 2, I gotta play them. I just love them. So I'm one of those people who like once a month will just Google Kingdom Hearts 4 and like search around for news stories, go to the wiki page, see if there's any new sources or anything, all that stuff. So that's way off in the horizon, I'm sure. But Kingdom Hearts 4 is my big one that I'm waiting for someday.
That is surprising, but I am very happy for you, and hopefully it'll come and it'll meet those expectations.
That's what people often say when I tell them I like Kingdom Hearts. They go, you know what? I'm happy for you.
Good for you. Good for you. That is going to conclude our interview with TomatoAnus. TomatoAnus, thank you so much for your time. Tommy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to come on.